Alright, so we're going to continue our exploration of inequalities and take a look at a few what are called compound inequalities and the use of the word or and, right? So, example, graph and state in interval notation. Right, let's start with something easy, such as x is greater than 1, 1 is greater than x is greater than 0. So again, if you don't like the direction of that inequality, you can change it around, making sure that the open ends are pointing at the open end stuff and the pointy ends are pointing at the pointy end stuff. So if you prefer to see it this way, then you can change it around. Now, what does this mean? Let's graph this. Here is 0, here is 1. They're both open, and then we shade in. And they want interval notation as well. So left end is 0, right end is 1, and both would have parentheses. Now there is yet another way of giving your answer to inequalities. So we really have three ways of expressing inequalities. One, as an inequality like this. Two, as a graph like this. Three, as an interval notation like this. There is yet a fourth way of expressing an inequality, and that's known as set builder. Now, the way I like to think of this is that, to me, when I view these, if I know this, I can get that. And if I know that, it's easy for me to write down the interval notation. So likewise, if I am aware of this, number one, then set builder is really, really easy. It's just a very specific way of writing. Okay, so for set builder notation, here is what we start with, right? To build set builder notation, you would put a brace, a curly brace on the left, and if the variable is x, you would write an x, and then you would put a line, and then you'd write the answer. So students get this all confused, and really, I don't, if you spend a little moment thinking about this, this is like the easiest thing in the world to do. You brace, letter, line, answer. I mean, how is that hard, right? So don't make this a mistake. There is, of course, meaning to this. This line in mathematics, if you're interested in learning the meaning, this line in mathematics says such that. So this is sort of shorthand. So this is really saying x such that x is greater than 0 and less than 1. Okay, so that's what this is saying. Greater than 0 and less than 1. Alright, let's take a look at and or statements. So example, k less than or equal to 1 or k greater than 5. Now the word or means, and so you just have to learn this, the word or means combined answer. Combined answer. In other words, both parts. Both, or you could say all parts. Okay, so if you take a look at this, then we could draw a graph of this. This one here, graphically, I'll put it on the same picture, has a 1 to it. 1 is closed, and k goes to the left. This one there is an open circle at 5, and k, because it's greater, goes to the right. And that is the graph of the answer. So this is the graph. What would the interval notation look like? What would the interval notation look like? Well, the interval notation, let me draw the picture again so I can label it clearly. So here is my picture. And as I said, you get the interval notation quite easily from the picture. So I like to always graph it to get the interval notation. So since the answer has two distinct parts, right? So this is part of the answer, this is part of the answer, and this is not the answer, not answer, right there in the middle. Since the answer has sort of these two distinct parts, you're going to get two intervals. You're going to get interval for this and an interval for this. Now, let's do the one on the right first. So the one on the right starts at 5, that's the left end of it, and ends at, we talked about infinity a little while ago, infinity in the last video. So there it is. And since 5 is not included, we're going to put a parenthesis there. And since infinity is never reachable, we're going to use a parenthesis there. Now what about the left end? Well, the left end, on this one, keeps going on forever. So this, as I said, is negative infinity. It's again symbolic. It's not something we can actually get to. And the right end is 1. And since we can actually get to 1, because it's filled in, we put a parenthesis, bracket at the 1. And since we can never get to negative infinity, we use a parenthesis on the left end. And then we would use or in the middle. And that is the interval notation. Now sometimes, especially in my math lab, you may also use this symbol, a U, an upside down U, and that is or means or in mathematics. Now we can do set builder as well, just to complete out all three. So let's see, set builder. Now remember, set builder is super easy. Yeah, the letter we are using is K, so bracket K, line, and then the answer, K less than 1 or K greater than 5. Honestly, set builder is the easiest of the three, but the one that most people get wrong. So there is all three ways of writing the answer. Let's look at an AND problem. So what if we had said b greater than or equal to negative 4 and b less than 1? Now the difference between and or means use both parts. And means what's in common. Answer is what is common. Okay, so again, I'm going to draw this, get the graph of this. So here is negative 4 and here is 1, and I'll do this in two colors. So I'll do this first one in black. So it's a closed circle right there, and it's greater than negative 4, so it goes that way. That's the first one. And then the red, this one here I'll do in red. So it's less than or equal to, so it's not, less than, so it's not included. There is the open circle. And b less than 1, so it goes in the other direction. Now, if you look at those two answers that I've just drawn, they overlap. They overlap where? They overlap starting here all the way to there. Now, they don't overlap at 1 because 1 is not part of the red answer. But they do overlap at negative 4 because the red answer and the black answer both overlap there. So all of that area is the overlap. And that is the AND answer. This is the AND region. Okay, so the actual graph, when you draw this, you've got to make sure that you indicate that this is your answer, that is your answer, right? That region is the answer. So you could redraw a fresh graph once you figure out where it is and make sure to say this is the answer. Okay, and then of course from there you can always get interval notation, because once you've got that out, then interval is pretty easy. You would say -4, 1. And what about set builder? So set builder, you have a choice. You could say x such that b such that b is greater than or equal to -4 and b is less than 1. That is acceptable. Alternatively, and better, would be to say b is -4 less than or equal to b less than 0, less than 1. Right? Because that's what the answer is. That's what this region is. It's bigger than 4, including -4, but less than 1, because because there's an open circle at 1. So graph, interval notation, set builder for and. And is common region, or is both areas put together. Both areas put together. Now, there is one interesting situation, or two interesting situations for both and or. So here it is. So let's say you had an example where you had b less than 1 or b greater than negative or equal to -1. Okay, so or, remember, is the two regions put together. So if I were to draw this, here is the first one, here is 1, closed circle goes that way, and here's the second one, closed circle goes that way, not b -1. Now, if you put these two answers together, notice that you get the whole number line, right? Because this first one takes you all the way to -infinity, and this right one takes you all the way to +infinity, and they overlap there in the middle. So this one, the interval, the actual answer starts at -infinity and ends at +infinity. So the actual answer region would be this in red. And so the interval notation would be -infinity to +infinity. And the set builder, you could either say be and all real numbers. Okay. And the other interesting thing is this one. What if it had been b less than or equal to -1 and b greater than or equal to 1? So if we again draw this, graph this, here is -1, it's a closed circle, less than to the left. Here is +1, closed circle to the right, and remember and is the overlapping region, and there is no overlap. No overlap. Right? So what do we say in this situation? So we basically have nothing to no answer. So in this situation we would say no solution, and sometimes we say this, which is the empty set. Right? It's empty, nothing, no answer, empty set.